In this lab, we're going to download, install, and use the S3 command line tools. There are a lot of tools that exist to work with S3. There's your standard web GUIs, such as the AWS console. There's also a wide number of downloadable third-party desktop solutions, such as Cloudberry. All of these make interactions with your S3 buckets as simple as using an FTP service. Being a developer, I actually prefer using command line tools a lot of the time. The S3 command line tool is all right, but I actually prefer S3 command, and I find it one of the best and easiest to use. It's also completely free. The steps to install it are very simple. You first download it, install it, download your credentials, provide those credentials to S3 command so it's able to access your S3 buckets, and then use it. Let's give it a go. Back in your terminal, let's go ahead and log into your My First server. To ease the install, let's actually become root for the rest of the session. You can do this with sudo su-. I typically like to install packages I download in var local source. Let's go ahead and cd into that directory now. Next up, we need to grab the S3 command package. Back in a browser, pull up this URL, S3 Tools S3 command, and click on Download. To download S3 command, you'll have to click on Download here. Although there are repositories for both Debian and Red Hat distributions, I actually find installing from the tarball to be the fastest and easiest way a lot of times. Go ahead and right-click and copy the link address for S3 command. Back in your terminal, let's wget that file. Wget and then paste that location back into your terminal and push enter. Now I just downloaded the file into a file called download, which isn't going to work. Let's move that into something that makes more sense. Let's move download into s3cmd.tgz. Now let's untar it with tar-xvzf s3cmd.tgz. Let's cd into s3cmd-1.50 alpha1, and let's run a less on the install file to see the instructions for installing. Here we see that they're talking about packages. We're not installing from packages. We're actually installing from the source tar-gz package. So let's browse down a bit by pushing space. Here we can see that the easiest way to install this is with Python setup py install. Let's go ahead and do that. Copy that command out of here and push Q to get out of the documentation. Now let's just paste that command back in, Python setup.py install. Excellent. We see that it's installed. Let's actually try running it. S3cmd. Says we're not configured yet. Probably makes sense, we haven't given it keys. Let's actually download our keys to this machine. Go back to your web browser and log into the AWS console. From here, click on your user and click on Security Credentials in the upper right. It may ask you to log in again to verify that you're getting in the right place. Here we actually need access keys, so let's click on Access Credentials. We're going to need to provide these keys to S3 command, so let's just leave this up here so we can copy and paste these values into S3 command when it asks for them. Back in your terminal, let's type s3cmd-configure. Here it's asking me for an access key. I'm going to copy that out and paste it in here. Here it's asking me for my secret key. So I'm going to go back into my browser, show my secret key, make sure I copy and paste the entire key, and then provide that to S3 command. We don't need an encryption password, and we don't need any path to GPG. We're not going to use HTTPS, and we're not going to use a proxy server, so just push enter there as well. Let's go ahead and test. Type Y here and see if we can actually interact with our buckets. Looks like we're all good. Let's go ahead and push yes to save our settings. Excellent. Now let's run s3cmd and see what happens. It says we're missing a command. I know that we can run an ls to see our buckets, so let's try that. Excellent. I can now see my bucket. Let's see what else S3 command can do. Let's type s3cmd-help. Looks like it can do quite a bit. We can copy objects, get disk usage by bucket, move objects, modify access control lists, and a wide variety of other things. So now that S3 command is all set up on our server, we may want to also try to install it and set it up on our actual workstations. Let's go ahead and get out of our server and get back to the deck. Would also invite you to poke around with S3 command. You can simply run S3 command --help, or for help about a specific feature, you can type S3 command, the name of the feature, and -help. Some things to try are install S3 command on your own workstation. Sometimes this is a bit more involved and difficult, and this is the reason why we did it on our server instead. Once it's installed, try creating a website from a bucket. Try copying a whole directory from your workstation into S3 command using the sync feature. Try creating an S3 signed URL. Try command switches such as recursive, delete after, and so forth.